background memo from Lisa, which we have not gotten yet. So we're going to adjourn that application until the board has gotten that report from you and had a chance to digest it. So we're gonna, we'll put that back on the schedule, probably the 7th, but it will be adjourned until the board has that report and is digested. So that's that one. Okay, Lisa?
Yes. Do you want to make a motion to bring that to July 2nd?
Yeah, motion to adjourn our FACF to July 7th. Second? All in favor? Thanks.
Yeah,
So you can able to turn on this other TV?
Oh.
It would have been on.
So we have written decisions that Janine has distributed for both, let's start with Bridgehampton Realty. Has everyone had a chance to read that? Yes, no? Yes. You guys ready to vote on that? And approve the... You guys have that? How about, okay, how about East End Holdings? Yeah, right, so we can't vote on that since, so, is the clock ticking on that one, or do we have?
Once the hearing is closed, my understanding is you have a certain number of days to render a decision.
Yeah, how many days do we
I think
have?
it's 62.
62, so we closed that hearing 2 weeks ago. Our next meeting isn't for 4 weeks. So we're fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe Janine can summarize the decisions folder.
Or you can try that. Okay.
Take a look at it first, and then I'll go through that.
If I may, remember what we're doing, we had two lots, regularly shaped lots, making them into.
Yeah, I know it's very straightforward, but nobody's read the memo, so, but, you know.
It's a written decision, right? Do you want to start with East End first, or which one do you want to start with? East End first, second. Bridgehampton Realty's first. Okay, so Bridgehampton Realty Group was the application for a 3-lot subdivision on 105 Willow Street. The applicant had come back with a modified sketch plan drawn by the architect, if you recall. They made some changes. I think the board was in favor of the flag lot configuration. I referred to that in the decision. The premises has lot 1 is already improved with a house and garage fronting on Willow Street. Lots 2 and 3 are the proposed development lots. 2 and 3 are in rear of a lot that fronts on Willow Street. 2 and 3 will have street access via a 25-foot common water driveway screened by screened by trees, straddling flagpoles in both lots 2 and 3. Lot 2 will be comprised of 40,178 square feet, and Lot 3 will be comprised of 40,000 square feet. Made the calculation includes the area of the flagpole strip, and they meet the dimensional requirements of the Southampton Village Code. The proposed common driveway is more than 500 feet in length, and therefore the applicant is required to conform to the New York State Fire Code. Section 511 has the lots made accessible to emergency vehicles. There was a long discussion about that at the last meeting. I think we understood that. Lots 2 and 3 that are unimproved, they propose to have each of them improved with a 2-story residence with attached garage, which is consistent to the properties to the south and east, which are improved by residences. The board considers the sketch plan to be a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA. It requires no environmental review.
This is just the sketch.
Right.
Correct.
Yep, so
Yep.
if this were approved, the applicant would have 6 months to come back with a subdivision application. So the
Right.
board would, there'd be another opportunity to review the final engineering details.
Right, and if you recall, we were focused on making sure there was landscaping on either side of the flagpole, so,
Yes,
And
this is
that's
a
the
general
summer
agreement about the
substance.
layout.
yeah, yep. You guys good? Okay, motion to approve a sketch plan for Bridgehampton Realty Group. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Janine, do you want to do East End Holdings?
Of course,
Yeah.
sure. East End Holding, hopefully I do it justice, John. We prepared a resolution approving the lot line modification. If you recall, this is an improved parcel located in the Village Business District. There's no minimum lot size requirements in that area. There was a revised transfer map submitted, and it indicated lots 1, 2, and 3 would have road frontage of 22.32 feet. There would be an addition, Lot 4, which would have a 5-foot across the front roadway, and that would ostensibly be used as a pedestrian walkway from the street to the village parking area located in the rear. The applicant proposes to remove the current buildings on the existing 3 lots, and the applicant has indicated an intent to improve the 3 lots with 1 2-story building. Did I get that right, John? Okay.
On-site parking as well.
Okay. Okay, and the application is classified as a lot line alteration governed by the various regulations in the village code, in addition to the general subdivision regulations in Article 7 of the New York State Village Code. This application is classified as a Type 2 action pursuant to SECRA, which requires no environmental review. The properties are located within the Southampton Village Historic District. On April 28, 2025, the Village Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation determined that the structures were not contributing structures to the Southampton Village Historic District and authorized removal of the existing structures on the existing lots. We held a public hearing on May 5th. The planning board considered public comments and testimony, and this is subject to approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services for the lot line modification, and the applicant removing the structures on the lots in accordance with the requirements of the village code. In addition, the final site plan approval, Lot 4 will not be used as a buildable lot. That's the one.
This is an access lot.
It's 5 feet wide, right? Okay.
And this will come back to the board for site plan review once we receive an application.
Okay. Motion to approve East End Holdings and the lot line reconfiguration there. Second?
Second
Thank you.
motion.
All in favor? Aye. Okay,
Aye.
thanks. "36 Windmill Lane." Hey,
Hi there. Lisa Zaloga, architect for 36 Windmill Lane. I don't know how much you guys have been paying attention to what's been going on. We were hoping to get our zoning board approval at the last meeting. However, that meeting was canceled, so we do not have zoning board approval. We do in fact have health department approval at this time and are moving forward with the septic system installation. LMKA, what's the name? LKMA, I can never remember. They reviewed our drainage plan for the rear part, for the rear area there, and made some notes. We've had those notes put on our plan. I submitted those. I've submitted a revised survey that made a couple of notation corrections as to trying to clarify what is existing, what is under construction, and what is proposed. The Architectural Review Board has written a letter saying that they have no problem with the application whatsoever and are fully in plan to approve it as soon as they are able to. So I guess my question to you is, what can we do to move this along?
questions? down here? Any questions?
Lisa, have you resolved the question with the fire marshal about secondary egress?
Of the event space upstairs?
I know that was an open question.
Yeah, it's in with New York State. I mean, either we will have to come up with a way to get down from the rear of the building, or we will come down from the existing stairway. My interpretation is that, as is Steve Lemansky's, is that it would be classified as a Group B, and that you would therefore, because we're sprinkled, would be allowed to have 100 foot, where we're like around 88 feet or something. So we're having that conversation, but that's under conversation at the moment.
I don't know if I'm allowed to express sympathy, but I have sympathy for you guys. This is turning into a serious professional game of whack-a-mole, right? And as soon as you think you solved one thing, something else comes up. I know the last question that we had, the question I had at the last meeting was who was going to handle parking lot construction. That's been answered to my satisfaction, so I think we're good there. I know the ZBA decision is pending. You know, I heard about the egress issues with the fire marshal. I heard there's an outstanding CO issue, none of which really falls into the planning board. You know, that's stuff that you have to work out with the building department. We'll just assume that that gets done. I think I'd like to move this along. If no one objects here, no one has any questions. I think.
The thing is, I think you need the ZBA, do they need the ZBA decision?
Typically, we would ask for the ZBA decision to be part of the record while the hearing is still open.
But I can make it pending. We can move this along pending, because, you know,
Pending.
we don't have a meeting on the 16th, so, and I don't want to hold this up any longer. So what I'd like to do is caveat, we're good if the ZBA gives them the approval that they need it. Is that?
So what you might do is close the hearing with
Yep.
the exception of a written decision from the zoning board to allow that to be input into the record, and then ask council to prepare a written decision for the next meeting, hoping that we'll get the ZBA decision in the interim, and that there'll be no changes required by that decision, because there wouldn't be an opportunity to make those changes either as a result of the zoning board or as a result of the conversations with the fire marshal.
Great, thank you, that's super helpful. So motion to close the hearing on this. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Janine, if you can start the memo, hopefully the ZBA cooperates on this and, can move this ahead, and then, we'll get it on the agenda for July 7th, and I think we can give you what you need from us then.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you so much.
Right, Alex? Right, is that, got it covered there?
Yeah, I think so.
The only issue is if new information, things change.
Of
then
course, right.
that's-
Right. What are we waiting for from the ZBA? What do they have to?
They have to make a decision
uh,
about the outdoor dining use, about the restaurant expansion use. There's a few area variances, and there's several area variances specific to the outdoor dining, because they're asking for
They need
criteria
those- they
for the
need
outdoor
those
dining, and also there's a
variances.
parking waiver involved as well.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that just from I wasn't, I don't think the parking waivers for the question, that was pretty big on that, so there was the big ones with the seating capacity.
Indoor versus,
Oh, Lisa, pull that microphone, would you?
indoor versus outdoor. So assuming the ZBA.
Yeah, I mean, when they pulled the board, I'm
Yeah.
fairly certain that
Yeah,
they were.
I think as soon as those gating items are cleared at the ZBA, we can move this forward from a planning board perspective. Okay?
So you've closed it and you're gonna have a written decision?
Well, we can't have a written decision until we hear all this,
Right,
Well,
these
oh.
issues are solved, right?
right,
but
but
as soon-
potentially it'll be on July 7th.
We will prepare, based on what the ZBA does between now and July 7th, right? We'll have Janine work on a written decision based on that outcome, if there is an outcome. So
Perfect.
we will be prepared to go on July 7th,
Okay,
assuming this goes as everyone hopes it does,
okay,
or at least you guys hope it does. Right, okay,
thank you.
okay, thanks. That's all right. Yeah, I heard it was bad out there. Yeah. No worries. Diamond Communications, or is that, are they on the agenda?
They submitted a request in writing in advance. They would like to adjourn that
Okay.
hearing to July 7th.
Got it. So motion to adjourn the Diamond Communications cell tower application until July 7th. Second.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
I was ready for that, I don't know.
Somebody suggested that we just paint in the tower right here on this mural here. I don't know about that.
We could make the lake a different color too.
That's true. It's a bit greener
I'd
than
leave that to the trustees. Let's leave that to the trustees. Connemara.
Good afternoon. Good evening. John Bennett for the applicant. I'm submitting the proof of posting and mailing and all that stuff. This is a, would you like me to put a survey down in front of everybody?
Sure.
Okay. This is, it's a lot line modification. There are two existing lots. Let me approach here, I'll find it. There are two existing lots. One's a flag lot off of First Neck Lane, and the other one is an existing lot. So they're both existing lots, I should say, and one is an improved lot. And the concept, I believe you've seen this before. The concept was to take areas to be transferred. The concept is to take 26,000 square feet from the larger, almost 3-acre lot, and graft it onto the residence lot, the improved residence lot on, the fronts on First Neck Lane. Well, they both front on First Neck Lane. One of them is a flag lot. Although, because of the flag lot.
Hey, John, can you speak into the microphone?
Oh, I'm so
please?
sorry. Although because of the flag lot requirement, this lot number 2 has to be more than 120,000 square feet. The existing.
Not seeing it.
We're not seeing the map
We're
yet.
not seeing it.
I think there may be a problem with that
Oh, okay,
TV,
we'll just
but
take
you
ours
can,
out of
you
there.
can,
Okay, I've got it.
yeah.
Oh, good, okay. Just easier.
The existing improved parcel is significantly under zoning. So although you'll end up with a somewhat non-conforming large lot, you'll end up with a much more conforming house lot. When I say the house lot, I mean the existing improved lot. Because we were creating, in effect, although we were reducing the nonconformity of the existing improved lot, we were creating a nonconformity on the large lot. We went to the zoning board of appeals that granted the relief. So, which is nice because there's a couple of cases which I handed up before. I think it's in my submissions that say, essentially, once the zoning board of appeals has created the lots, that's the zoning for the area. So, but for the fact that the flag lot requirement in the 3-acre zone, or R120 zone, is a little bit more than 120,000 square feet for a flag lot, we would have been here without the zoning board of appeals. Zoning board of appeals granted the relief. I think everyone was satisfied that since we were significantly increasing the size of the improved lot, that this was a good thing. That's all I have to say.
Any questions? I mean, we've seen this for a while. It just came back for public hearing.
That's right.
And it did receive zoning board approval. It did receive zoning board approval.
Was it previously approved?
2 years, just
We have to have a public,
waiting for 2 years. 2 years.
which I think we can open and close and move this forward. Right, any questions at this end? No. Right, everybody's seen this. Okay, thanks,
Okay,
John.
thanks.
Janine, do we have to formally open a public hearing or just invite comment on this?
Was there anyone here to speak
Is
on
anyone
it?
here to speak on this, for or against? So I can close the
can
public
close.
hearing. Motion to close the public hearing on Connemara Court 52 First Neck.
Second the
All in
motion.
favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this one, Janine, we can draft
Yep.
and vote on July 7th.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay,
Thanks.
so,
Thank you.
the next is a subdivision review, which is new to us, or relative, new to most everybody here. 99 Sanford LLC.
For the applicant, David Gilmartin, Greenberg Traurig, 2317 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton. I suppose only Mr. McFarland was on the board the last time we were here on this. We had gotten sketch plan approval, went to the zoning board to get a special exception use to build 2 residences instead of 2 offices. For some reason that still doesn't occur to me, they denied it, we litigated it, eventually settled it with another application, which is what you see before you. So we do have ZBA approval now to put the residences on the property. It's in an office district, and that was the requirement. This board also saw a site plan for 2 office buildings, and that was universally despised by the neighbors. And by the applicant, quite frankly, but felt they were left with no other choice. We ended up not following through on that application and going through this process. We didn't continue with the subdivision because we didn't know what we needed from the health department. It's either commercial or residential, which has 2 different requirements. So we're back. Our sketch plan expired, and we want to go through and start the process again. We did put in a sketch plan, and I had a chance to review the memorandum, which says that we are short on some information. First, it says that all existing structures, wooded areas, wetlands, etc., need to be on the plan. There's only one structure that exists, and I believe it's located on the plan. It's the plat law office.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Can we rewind the tape a little bit for the benefit of everyone here? Could you start at 10,000 feet and just remind everyone where, because a lot of people are not familiar with this
Oh,
one on the board,
yeah.
where it is?
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead, but it's the lot that's directly behind the old Schmitz, which is now the Red Horse Market.
Right.
Across the street, we have 2 residential properties. There are offices, an office to the south and a couple residences to the south. To the east, there's a dentist's office and then a series of residential structures. And really, this is 4 lots behind Schmitz. There's 2 across a private right-of-way that are residential, and then these 2 lots, which we hope to be
Would you mind
residential.
putting your map up
Sure.
for us and you can point out the, things you're talking about?
Upside down.
You can, well, if it faces you, I think we can pull it up on the screen in the right orientation. Thank you.
So here are the 2 lots. This is the existing office building, which is the plat law office. And then across the street, actually, we have the names right, are Mark Francis and Michelle Brogard, who led the charge against the commercial development with it before the residential development. But that's
Just
the,
pull that mic close so we can make sure we can get your testimony on record. Thanks.
So that's the area that we're talking about. And again, if you go down Sanford Place and then come through here, you'll see that it's 4 lots sort of onto them. Well, it will be 4 lots onto themselves. Right now it's 3.
Can you just point out where the old Schmitz is and then
Yes.
where the other office is?
So the Schmitz building is right here,
Yep.
Wait, where's that?
right?
Where's that? Let's see what it's right here.
And then there is a lot that says Barry Feldman, which is an office building. Then
It's not listed by that. It's not listed.
right here,
easy to do.
Where's Schmitz? Wait. Oh, okay, so this is Schmitz? No.
Schmitz is here.
Okay,
It's
right
in this
here.
area.
Okay.
Yep. And then the road to go down is that way, on the north end of these,
And those,
the top end of those two, right?
and the houses, look at that little street, like off of Schmitz, of course, like, this would be where the parking lot was. And you would come
Yeah,
out to make
you'd
the
come
turn
out and
onto Mercy.
turn on to Sanford
Right here.
Place, on the North Sea.
Yeah. Schmitz is here.
And Mr. Gilmartin, on the north side of Sanford Place, those are all residences, or those
Where
residences?
it has Mark Francis and Francis Bogard in
Right.
small print. Yes,
Yep.
two
Okay, so these are the
residences.
two, okay, so,
And then on the east end of these two of these two lots in question, so the far right-hand side of your plat are all residences, correct?
Except for Plaza 97 LLC, which, if you've been here long enough, like me, that was the old 7-Eleven. It's now a dentist's office, but that's the only commercial on that side. But we're really blocked from that area. They're not gonna be impacted by
Right,
this.
because the only Sanford Place ends at the,
Dead ends.
yeah, dead ends right there.
Dead ends right there.
And all the lots to the south of this also access off North Sea, correct?
Or Bowden Square.
Or Bowden Square, correct?
Bowden
yeah.
Square is where
So,
actually the
you know,
Glick and Feldman.
You've got some houses here, and then Bowden Square, where the restaurant is down here.
The only issue you were solving before the zoning board took a detour was something to do with the fire and parking.
Well, very good,
You were-
very
you were-
good memory, yes.
Hey,
Very good memory.
I pay attention, my memory's dodgy.
And right now, this is zoned office,
OD Office District, yes.
right? And you're proposing two half-acre,
Two small houses.
Single-family residences, yes.
on a half an acre.
Yes. Mhm.
Right.
One's a little bit more.
And can you
That's right.
run through the other residential lots, what size they are on the north side of Sanford and to the east of this?
On the north side, they're approximately the same size.
Beg your
They're
pardon?
approximately the same size.
Okay.
They all have to be 20,000 square feet. It's in, the office district requires 20,000
20,000.
square feet.
Yep, okay.
So they're all in and around that area.
Okay. All right, thank you for that.
Yep.
I think everybody's up the curve better
wait,
now.
wait, last one.
Go
This
ahead.
is not, this is like a fence between the old Schmitz and this lot. There's no, the street is the Sanford Place. That's the only street. Where Schmitz is, because I know another market's coming in there. What's between the lot lines of the proposed the house and?
So this dwelling was
Mhm.
gonna be in between?
I'm talking about this
He-
line.
Yeah, right.
What kind of-
It's the line,
what kind of
it's the lot line
demarcation?
between one of your western proposed lot and the old
Proposed two-story
Schmitz.
single.
New Redpath.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, the plan is, I think there's overgrowth now. I don't think property's been maintained
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
exceptionally well. But there's gonna be heavy-duty screening
Okay.
there that would block the owner from the Schmitz property.
You're always here, we're talking about screening.
Yeah, right. It's always important, right?
Exactly.
Screening makes for good neighbors.
You don't see the curb cuts doing,
Yeah.
here's the curb,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, all right. Please continue, sir.
Okay, so there were a couple of issues that were raised that I think are on the plan, but I'll certainly take guidance and take that back to Squires Holden to have them change the map. But the existing structures, I think, are located on this map. Some of the utilities I saw are on there as well. And has a requirement of the proposed pattern of lots, including typical lot width and depth. I think that's shown on our plan as well. So if I could just have a little guidance to take back to Squires Holden.
Yeah, I'll just highlight a couple of things. So these are, the quotes aren't, not that everything is missing in these lines, these are just the direct quotes from section 9710, which is the requirements of the sketch plan.
Right.
I think that very often, even though the code typically requires these things, if you're satisfied with the layout, the planning board has been comfortable, approving in sketch plan format with what would then be provided, before final approval, for some of the details. So, and one of the features in particular, since I've been here, has often been waived, which is that the physical features and structures within 200 feet of the boundaries of the property. So that includes some more details and also the contours. So I don't see any contours on here for topography and that additional space outside of beyond the limits, which in some cases is very relevant to a subdivision, and in this case, it doesn't strike me as particularly relevant right here, but it is in the code, so I like to highlight that that is something that is required. The existing, I think we do see the existing structure, but not, again, not outside of within 200 feet of the boundaries, and I don't necessarily think it's, in this case, it's needed, but there are some other developed areas of the existing lot, like the existing parking that's going to be demolished. And it just might help to understand, especially looking at this compared to the existing visual, where that line is actually being drawn. That parking lot actually would be quite helpful for them to understand that division. As far as the pattern of the lots and the width and depth, that wasn't the issue. The bigger issue with this secondary lot is the street access, because the Sands Place ends with the start of the lot, so there's only like 23 feet of lot access to the first, is it labeled? I have to look. Are they labeled on here? Which one's lot? Well, they got lot 1. What's going to be lot 1 actually touches the street. After that, it's all by easement. So currently, it's not totally clear to me the proposed access for the second lot, perhaps a driveway from that 23 feet, and there's a shared driveway there. I think some additional clarity here could be helpful. I also didn't have details on the easements, so I don't know if those easements are just, if they allow for full development of that right-of-way, or if it's limited to, because again, with things like fire access, there may be a desire for a greater width there. But if you look at the aerial, you can see that there's a driveway on this half of the access. So I think some greater clarity would be helpful to show that the proper access is provided for that secondary lot.
So just taking a step back on that, because it was one of the complicating issues, the only complicating issue in our first go-around at this and the board at that time, and I'll see if I can pull that stuff up, but there are easements and there are ZBA decisions which grant the access to both lots. So, if, and they don't have it, it's been 3 or 4 years, so I can't remember exactly what happened back then, but this board was satisfied with the access. We do provide the driveway accesses to each of the individual lots. We show that. When you ask for the outline of the existing parking lot that we're going to take out, it's going to look pretty jumbled compared to what we have. I don't know, do you want me to do it in some sort of faint print, or I have surveys that show it that could distinguish it for the board if that would work, but
yeah, maybe if instead you just want to submit a survey that shows it so you can see
existing conditions.
Yeah.
All right.
The other question I had, which I was just seeking, and I agree, and I didn't have all the information on the prior case. I do know that there was a 1983 ZBA decision that was then in the last round with the planning board. The planning board determined that ZBA decision basically allowed access and it carried and it held still. I didn't review it, but that was the planning board's previous determination. But the other thing that I don't see depicted on here, which I'm interested because of like is how it's built out and these existing easements and what's being shown is where the septic's going to go, and they'll each need their own IA system. So typically that is shown in a subdivision and it will be necessary to get county approval. Right. So that would be, and it may in fact, I know these are just concept plans. It's not necessarily that everything's going to be there, but like it may affect where things are put on the site, whether there's an accessory garage because maybe you need that space, or whether the pool has to be.
Okay, that's fair. I'll get that located on.
But as far as the past decision, like everything you said, I agree with in that this was previously approved, but to be 2 commercial lots, because the ZBA had denied the residential use. The ZBA has, and the only thing I wanted to add to that is that as part of the conditions of their approval of the special permit here for the residential use, they're applying the R20 zoning criteria. So these lots do meet the OD district criteria at 20,000 feet, but they also meet the R20 criteria. And then all the setbacks and dimensional regulations that apply to these lots are meant to be compliant with those R20 zoning criteria, so that you can't have a larger house on a smaller lot.
Right. It was my recollection, subject to great review, which council will get, there was a protracted thing on how this road goes in and where the residents would put in the fire department, the fire inspector spent a lot of time on access to these houses, and that was, it was a couple of months of anguish over access to this road, and it was proved by Mark to be satisfactory. That was when it went ahead for rejection by the zoning board, to say it was commercial, and everybody thought everybody was outraged. So we're now dealing with, it's 2 years later in the outrage.
But the fire marshal's fine with the dimensions of Sanford Place as drawn here.
We had satisfying, and again, we're starting this process over. Right?
Yeah.
Our
So
sketch plan expired after 6 months. So it's,
The elaborate work from McNamara's band,
Right.
it was done to his satisfaction. There
Good.
were all sorts of things with roads and access.
but
With the
we'll go
were the
through that
neighbors
again.
objecting?
Right? Yeah, we have to go through it again. I wouldn't say we're happy to do it, but we understand we have to do it.
Yeah, it might be helpful, I don't know, if to some visual to like clarify the existing easements, because they are a little unusual in their configuration
Yep.
here. And so I'm looking at it again now, trying to understand if I misread it, because you said there is driveway access, but I didn't see clear driveway access off the easement, and, sorry. And this is sufficient width to,
With the additional,
Yeah.
both sides have an easement.
okay,
Reciprocal easements, so these guys and these guys will.
But it's on the east side, how far
Yeah.
they go.
This is some other
So what's
people's
the issue about
houses.
this, about the easement then?
Access
Oh.
is facing street.
Maybe
I can
David
go
will
that
agree.
way.
The trucks
I don't know that. That's a good
get
question.
access to 2 houses on the
Okay.
back. It's a very complicated easement.
That's-
sorry, I'm just gonna look at,
Typically flat.
But it's not it's not a public street.
But it's already there.
But why is an easement that's affecting the public street?
I think the plan that I was looking at is slightly different, so there's a little more information on this one.
The local lawyers.
Okay,
But,
we'll
yeah.
go back and get that information in any event, to finish.
Maybe 'cause they want-
Yeah, any other questions from board members? All right, I had one. Existing, lot 2. The house is sort of at an angle relative to the street. Can you provide any color on why the house is positioned that way?
Well, it's an existing office
Existing-
building,
yeah, the existing
It's an
building.
office.
and it's going to be retrofitted. I suspect that the orientation of it will change in its retrofit, but it's an existing building, and that's the way that it's set now.
So there's no plan with that yet, whether it's going to be torn down or retrofitted to provide,
I think they're trying to
residential.
figure out
How to
which
do
is the
that.
better route. Sometimes it's cheaper just to
Yep,
knock it
understand.
down.
I know this one's been around for a while, and conceptually at a high level, I think the sense I get is everybody's open-minded, to move this one forward as a residential, assuming that we, get all the details worked out
Right.
and setbacks, et cetera, but I think it's going in the right direction.
Great. So
Right.
I'll get Squires Holden to update the maps, get them to you, maybe be back on July 7th.
Would the board like to schedule a public hearing for July 7th?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because then you could present
That'd be
those at the
great,
public hearing to continue to move it along.
Okay,
I'll get you the maps earlier than that.
perfect, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Let's move on to 137 Cooper's Neck.
Again. There's a replay.
Yeah, this one. This one's new. I know it's a replay. Never even heard about this.
Again, am I facing these towards you?
You can face them towards you, John.
Me?
Yeah.
It's easier for
They,
me.
they confused you, because I think it used to be they faced the other way.
Confusing.
Face the mic towards you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So this is a application, a two-lot subdivision off of Cooper's Neck Lane. One of the lots is improved by a single-family resident. And the other lot is essentially vacant lot, but there's a pool house and a pool on it. And I know that there's this H2M report mentions that, but I want to bring to your attention that it has been the policy of this village, when a covenant is filed, that, and probably the best example of this is the Kuwaitan piece on, used to be Ann Eisenhower's house, on Halsey Neck Lane. When you look at that house, it's on about 9 acres. But if you look to the right and to the left of the house, to the north and the south, there's 2 separate lots there. And there are accessory buildings all over the place. But there's a covenant on the property that says as long as those lots are owned and controlled by the same natural persons, that can stay. The concept is not to, by reason of this law that's applicable in most cases, that says you can't have an accessory structure without a principal structure. The purpose of this village's willingness, particularly in these large lot areas, is not to promote development, because this is really, the Marin family owns the property to the south, and then acquired this. So it's really, there's not any current plans to develop it. It's more of a planning in the future. So that's something that I think is something that the village has very wisely done in the past. In other words, restating it again, one of the lots has a single-family residence on it. The other lot, Lot 2, and by the way, these are both significantly oversized lots. We're in a R120 zone. Lot 1 is 201,000 square feet. Lot 2 is 200,000 square feet. But this lot has a single-family residence on it and a tennis court and some other things. The other lot has a pool and a pool house. So we're going to ask you to do what you've done in the past, which is put a covenant over both of these parcels that says as long as this parcel number 2 is controlled by these folks, that these accessory structures can stay there. It's not a big ask. It's been done in the past, and probably again the Kuwaitan piece on Halsey Neck is the best example. There are others. This was given a sketch plan approval in 2021, and I'd like you to let us just go right to the final application. Let me tell you why. What's the purpose for sketch? And by the way, the village code, I put in a letter to the board and council today. The village code specifically 9745A gives you the ability to waive that, waive any requirement for us to go back to sketch plan approval. There's really no need for sketch plan approval. Again, you can go right to a final hearing, I would hope here. The purpose for sketch plan approval is to make sure that the lots are generally in the configuration and size and structured so that the board is happy with them. You approve these lots at sketch plan. I don't think it's being presumptuous of me to suggest that there's really no other layout that would make sense here. And interestingly, is in 2021, it took us 4 years to get Department of Health Services approval here, because, and let me show you why. No, that's right, I don't have to do that, do I? When we went in, it was determined that back in the 90s, the Village Planning Board approved a lot line modification whereby the property to the north took about an acre from what is going to be lot number 1. So it was a lot line modification up here, and it's all in the file. And the Village Planning Board approved it, but in those days, people didn't go to the health department for a lot line modification. But the health department seems to forget that even though in 1981, their position is that if it was in 81, you had to, anything after 81, you had to come to us for had to come to the health department for a lot line modification. The Village Planning Board had approved that, and the health department didn't. So that probably added a year and a half to 2 years, because the board wanted all of the wastewater systems updated. So you can see, if you look at these wastewater systems, with the exception of the one that's between the house and the garage, you'll see that these wastewater systems are much more, they're much more modern than the houses, than the age of this house. And look at the wastewater system we had to do for the pool house. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ring system. So that took a long time to do, because they made us, the health department made us do all that. The board also issued a negative declaration. So we're so far down the road in terms of where you would typically be on a mere sketch plan approval. I think it's appropriate to ask you, because we've lost so much time in the health department, and we did everything they wanted us to do, and we argued back and forth about whether or not we should have to update all these wastewater systems, and the argument became, after a while, it was like, all right, we give up. We'll just do them. So you have everything that you would want here, I think, this topographic information. I know there's a request to put some additional, existing structures, wooded areas, wetlands, ponds, streams within 200 feet. There's some wetlands back there. We can put it on there fairly easily. Have contours. You have a negative declaration that you guys issued yourself. There is a health department approval on this map, and I filed it with the final application. So you have to scratch your head and ask, what purpose going back to sketch plan for this? It's everything's done. I don't think anyone's, again, I'm not trying to be presumptuous, but I don't think you have these 2 large lots. They have plenty of road frontage. This is the way they lay out. There's really no other way to do this, and I think they're really great. They're oversized lots in an area where there tend to be a lot of oversized lots.
One thing, John, is the proximity of the house to the lot line, is that, the house is 30 feet from the lot line, which is pretty close, it seems like.
Okay.
Is that within the sort of requirement for this zoning here?
Well, if we wanted to, interesting. You know what happened? They might have changed the setback since that time, but it is a pre-existing non-conforming house in certain ways. The problem that we would have with that is, I guess what we could do is we could sort of skew the line. It seems sort of unnecessary to do that, because the easy fix would be, well, let me think about, then I'd have to take, well, maybe I could move the lot line. Yeah, what am I? I'm at 200,000 square feet. So I guess I could just grab 5 feet from here. I could grab 5 feet from the northerly property. Thank you for pointing that out, because that was going to come up eventually. I could grab 5 feet from the northerly property. That would make the 35 foot. It's how long this application has been pending. Originally, the side yard setbacks in the zone were 30. Now they're 35. But I can grab 5 feet along the property line and graft it. Right? Am I missing something here? I could take 5 feet, because they're both, I don't have to worry about nonconformities
Right.
because they're so darn big. They're each, well, you know, lot 2 is 80,000 square feet more than it needs to be, and similar with lot number 1. So I could just move the lot line. I could move the lot line to make that 35 feet. I would take 5 feet from lot number 2 and run it from Cooper's Neck to the property line. Thank you for pointing that out.
Sure.
Thank you, appreciate that. That would have come up eventually anyway. But again, that's how long it's been pending.
Other questions?
That was it.
So candidly, my hope would be that you could establish a public hearing pursuant to the final application for July 7th. It's been a heck of a
Understood.
long time.
I'm a little confused on the timeline. So the original approval expired, planning board approval expired on this one because of health department?
It expired
delays,
because,
or it just-
you know, the sketch plan approval is only good for a certain time,
Right.
about a year or so. I'm grinding this thing out with the health department for
So
4 or
you were
5 years.
grinding it out
At
with the health
I mean,
department.
At a certain point, come back to you every 6 months and ask you to approve something. It just made sense to get the health department approval, which we have. So you have a full health department subdivision approval for this subdivision that you see. I would just modify it, I would simply modify it to
Yep.
pull the 5 feet down there. And so to create that 35-foot setback. And again, we left the pool there because it is a nice amenity for the existing house. We left the pool in the pool house there. And we'd file that covenant that the village has seen many times, again, in terms about as long as these lots remain in
Yep.
control.
Understood. And you're asking for us to waive the sketch plan step?
To redo the sketch plan. You've given a sketch plan approval, that's expired,
Yeah.
but you have something that you typically wouldn't have to somebody who comes to you and asks you
I
about an
understand that.
expired
So
special.
all
That
you're
health
asking
department
us
approval, I've
to-
got a neg deck, I've
I
got all that
understand.
great stuff.
So you're just asking to go, to
Straight to
bypass
final.
sketch plan and go to preliminary site?
Well, it'd be final, because it's a 2-lot subdivision, go sketch plan to final.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
Doesn't seem like a big
I
ask.
just have one, John, if you move the lot line, do you have to go back to the health department?
Yeah, that's not a big deal.
They'll do that,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So you'll need.
With the health department requirement for square footage in this zone
Yeah.
is
I
20,000
understand.
square feet, because we're on the south side of 27.
Do you agree with John's
Well-
interpretation of the village code on our ability to waive?
You do have the ability to waive under certain conditions if you deem it appropriate. What you can, and that is one of the things that you can waive. It's one of the regulations that's not necessary if you feel that it's already been approved and you feel that you want to move ahead with it. You just have to be, I would suggest as council that you be satisfied that this application comports to the prior application, you know, that the maps are the same,
Yes,
that you're not approving something that's not different. The only thing that will be different, according to the applicant's attorney right now, is that they're gonna move a lot line so that the setback requirement meets the current setbacks, and that's, you know,
That's a good
because he had to
catch.
wait a long
That's a
time to
good
get
catch.
approval, otherwise the
Thank you.
30-foot setback would have been fine had he got approval whenever they put it in.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah.
The section
Alex?
says that, you know, you can waive it unless there's something that is an issue with public health, safety, and general welfare. I've got health department approval, I've got
Okay. Yeah,
huge lots. Got a
Alex,
negative
Jen,
declaration.
I'd like to hear, Alex and Lisa, any view you have on expediting this.
I mean, it's up to the board. I know you just got this letter this evening. I don't know if you had a chance to go through and see if you had any thoughts on that. We could schedule sketch plan hearing on July 7th, or if you wanted to do it as final. I mean, we don't have the final version. We would have to get that in advance. We're getting a little bit close to when we'd have to publish the notice for the July 7th hearing, because there's a 21-day mailing. So something to keep in mind.
Lisa, do you have a view?
Yeah, I think that it's largely consistent with what was previously approved as described, that assuming that you have the existing decision and you can, that was previously written, and see if you would want to approve it with those same conditions most likely that were in that plan. The only thing I get concerned about is, you know, timelines with like getting the information, and, you know, rushing to put something on a hearing when there's going to be a modification now, but I know that he's at every meeting anyway, so he'll probably get it done. But that's just the, I don't see, I agree that these are large lots. They're even in a large lot district, they're bigger than the minimum requirements. It's not, it doesn't seem to impose any kind of environmental concern or health concern.
The form of the, is it a covenant to that, as long as the family?
Yeah, what the covenant says
Is that drafted? Have you written that?
Oh, I've written a bunch of them, yeah.
But is it in the file? Has Janine had a chance to review?
No, but I can
No,
get
there's
it.
not one for this.
No, yeah, I can get it. It's
Okay.
what it says. It says these are the owners, and they're the entities are controlled by the same family, and that this the pool house could stay there so long as the same family controlled it.
Yep.
And if the same family doesn't control it, there are two things that have to happen. One of two things has to happen. The pool and pool house have to go away,
Right.
or you have to put a primary structure there.
Right.
So I have this. The effect
And it
of
has
those
to meet-
covenants has been to slow down development, because somebody's like, okay,
Yeah.
I can't do this, I'm gonna put a house here.
Right, but we would want it to meet the current setbacks, et cetera, not be a pre-existing non-conforming, right, if that were to happen.
No, it's going, well, they're enormous setbacks. I mean, the
Yeah.
pool house is at 78 feet.
So-
Well, it'll be 5 feet less now.
Yeah,
because
John,
of-
here's what I'm thinking. I'm fine with expediting this, but I'm a little concerned that, you can review, everyone here has a chance to read it by the July 7th meeting.
It's pretty straightforward. And any of these things that if you pick up and you want to change, that's so simple. You just make them conditions of the final approval. Just want to get it on and move it along. It's been a long time.
No, I
And
understand that, but
it got
that's-
tortured by the health department. Not your guys doing,
Yeah,
not your guys
it's
doing,
not our
but
problem.
tortured by the health department. And if this wasn't such a obvious, how else are you going to subdivide these properties? It's just,
Cannot
yeah.
disagree with anything you said. It's just a concern that everyone here has plenty of time to read and review this.
Well, I'm
right?
not asking you to approve anything. That's the other thing. I'm asking you to put it on for a public hearing. I'm not asking you to approve anything.
Does anyone have a view, everyone willing to sign up for, coming up the curve, reading everything that Lisa's gonna write and Janine's gonna provide in time for the July 7th?
I think you already did it.
Schedule it then.
It's a two-page.
I won't likely have much else to say unless
Will
there's.
not have much like.
Yeah, I think it's consistent, so this is very,
On the 7th. Okay, all right, we'll schedule, 7th, you guys good with that?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
we'll
really
schedule
appreciate
a
that.
public hearing for the
I
7th on this
do,
one.
as is the Marin family. Thank you.
All right, so we'll see you on the 7th on this one.
And thank you again, Bill, for
Sure.
doing away with the oops 3 months down the line. Thanks a million.
Okay.
So this will be a public hearing on July 7th.
July 7th, correct. So in the site plan reviews, 865 Merrick has asked for a adjournment.
Yes, and I believe somebody's here to describe that.
Okay.
Rick Wisnowski from the Rayner Group for the applicant, 860 Montauk Highway Watermill. We've been adjourning this, I think, since probably for about a year now. We went to ZBA, got ZBA approval, and now we're just dealing with the health department and trying to figure out a location for the sanitary system for rotations. Currently, rotations and 22 windmills share the same sanitary system, and with the redevelopment, we don't have any space really to put 32 windmills sanitary system. And then also with Shippey's doing their sanitary upgrade, we're trying to work around where they have their sanitary system proposed. We were originally proposing it in the village right-of-way village lot that's behind these properties, but I think that's where Shippey's is putting their system now. So that's really where we're at right now.
So you still need an adjournment.
Yes, yeah, but I was just trying to, I guess, just give you an update on, what the status of our application is and why we've been adjourning it for these past months.
Understood. Any sense of when all those issues may settle out?
Well, I think now that Shippies is approved, we can, get their information on our plan and try to just squeeze in the system for rotations within our system and within their system. So hopefully in the next month or so.
Were you still planning to have your system in the front? I thought that was originally the plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but now we had our drainage in the back, and I think we're trying to move some of the drainage around and maybe put their system, Lear leaching, in the back of our site.
Because the systems are currently tied together? Is that
Yes.
part of the issue? Okay.
Yeah.
So your system, as I recall, in plans we've seen before, was actually on the south side of the building, right, but close to the front, right? But it was actually in that parking area.
It's in the parking area, and then it kind
raised,
of.
right, because of the water table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
It wasn't between the building and the street. It was.
Hey, have you talked to the trustees in the village about this problem, about, let's call it, this universal access for what will again become parking, but everything going that way, because you're on the edge of all these properties at the edge of the swamp, which has been filled in, which they call Windmill Lane, but all that sort of stuff, Shippies is working on it, rotations, and I have to do something, I guess. What are you doing with the village trustees, if anything? You don't have to, but they own the land.
Well, our sanitary for 22 is all on our property.
And no intention to change that. So the real problem is here finding out what to do with rotations.
Correct, because we're at, the size that we have on our site now is the minimum that is is required by the health department.
Right.
Okay.
And we still need, I think rotations is 600 gallons per day that we need to take into account.
And your latest thinking on where the rotations system would be positioned is?
We might try to move some drainage around and put the leaching on our site in that area, so that'd be the rear of the property.
Underneath the parking lot?
No, this is an area where we have proposed lawn.
That's great.
Okay.
The road is
But wouldn't that have to be raised as well?
Yeah, but originally the health department was making us use a higher groundwater elevation, and then compared to what Shippies was using, and we went and spoke with them, and we've kind of coordinated that we can use a different groundwater elevation.
For yours,
For
Shippies, or both?
for ours to match what Shippies was approved for, since they're so close.
And that change was based on new test holes being drilled, or what?
Yeah, I mean, our test holes had the groundwater similar to what Shippies had, but then there was a monitoring well that had it maybe one case of it going a little higher.
But you're all using that monitoring well up by?
It's by Rite Aid, by Rite Aid, I believe.
Just north of that, where Allen's Windmill might go, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, how would you feel if we adjourned this into August? I think is probably optimistic.
Yes,
it sounds like
yes, I would
also.
say so. Yeah.
Maybe we'll adjourn it to after Labor Day. Let me just check the calendar.
Yeah, I don't think we've set the dates that far.
How would you feel about September 15th?
June 16th.
Yeah, that would be fine as well, I believe.
Alex, that work for you?
I'm sorry, what was the date?
September 15th,
Let me just double check.
which would be
That's
the
the
first
third
meeting after Labor Day.
Yeah, we can put it on well, we can make a note that it's adjourned until then,
Okay.
and that the schedule changes. We'll
So-
update accordingly.
Thank you. So, motion to adjourn 865 Merrick to our September 15th meeting. Thank you, Amanda. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Brian Kelly. And, hi, good.
Matthew Henry, agent for the owner, Brian Kelly. Given that television is out, I do have extra copies if looking at this on the screen doesn't do the trick. So during our last review with the planning board, there was a directive from NPV to go back to the zoning board of appeals to get approval to relocate a split zone and a lot line that was OD and R 12.5. We actually have an HB in as well. These all come together at the same point. Happy to report to you, we did receive unanimous approval from the board to relocate the line that was the split as residential to encompass the parking lot into the OD. So we no longer, with that approval, have a parking lot in a R 12.5 in a residential zone. This was part of NPV's report, something they wanted us to do prior to the planning board
Right.
finalizing their decision and making an approved directive. In addition, NPV also noted that they would require up to 6 feet of buffer minimum. That was recommended. We do provide 8 feet, 10 feet, and 11 feet. That's the green that you see, in addition to the stockade fence. During that, I'd also like to let you know that there was no opposition. This is in the record, but there was no opposition. In fact, we did receive favorable approval and even a nice little letter from Ms. Burkowski, who's adjacent to the property regarding the use of the property and what we have there. Things we pointed out to the zoning board that I just want to remind the planning board, this was done without the benefit of permits initially. However, it was done with engineering. The engineering appears to have been substandard in its implementation, meaning the dry wells did not meet the right amount of water runoff, so the owner is going to have to reopen the parking lot and do what's necessary to get that additional dry well in. He's disappointed, but it's going to get done. In addition to anything with sidewalks, curb cuts, and anything required along County Road 39A. The parking lot, not often filled, but is a useful safety issue and way of getting in and out. If that parking lot wasn't there, vehicles do get backed up, and the in and out along that very busy road has been problematic. This has relieved that. So just a note on a little bit of why it's there in addition to the additional spots that are being shown there now. All the engineering that's required will be taken care of. Anything that is a directive from NPV will be taken care of if it hasn't been done already, along with that 6-foot buffer. We had hoped that this new review would gain planning board approval to proceed. We know that the zoning board is going through a change of personnel at the moment, so their formal written approval isn't done, but we don't expect anything to be different than what we're showing you here.
Questions? One of the things that came up before about this was how you're managing the traffic safety issues from the parking lot facing County Road 39 and just signage, et cetera. And there, I think NPV had suggested coordinating, might be the wrong word, but communicating with, I guess that's Suffolk County, and get their feedback. Is that been, how are you going to manage that?
That's been done, and I can submit it to planning. I don't believe they had an objection to anything that was there with regards to the means of entering and exiting, anything with the curb cuts. I believe actually, and again, I'm speaking on memory, not on the documents in front of me, but some of it was just down to the curb cuts, how the curbs could be developed, and the sidewalk implementation, the concrete walk that would be required.
Right. But like no left turn, those kind of signs,
Sure,
right? We're going to
sure.
want to understand that. But they haven't specifically provided guidance on that
I
yet?
believe they have. I believe
Okay.
we have something from them that I could report on.
But it's-
Clearly.
I didn't see it it's not in the file yet, right? I didn't see it.
No, it wouldn't
Yeah,
be in your
okay.
file yet. We
Okay.
wanted to come to you first with this approval. It seemed to be the main criteria to come back to you with, to see if there's anything the planning board wanted above and beyond, which is something you're mentioning now.
Yeah.
But whatever would, at this point, be required as a means of getting it approved by planning, not as approved by zoning, would be taken care of. I don't know what extreme could occur or come up that wouldn't be implemented.
Yeah, and is there a landscape, maybe you said this and I missed it, is there a landscape plan that separates, this commercial from the residential behind it, or to the south of it?
The green is our planting, and that's where the 8-foot, 10-foot, and 11-foot
You did say
buffer
that.
is being shown, and that's what's been approved. What you're seeing is what was utilized with the zoning board to get approval as a buffer between the two.
And it's 8, 10, just plants?
Sure.
No, there's no fencing, no?
There is fences, stockade fence there as
So
well.
it's a
We
stockade.
have 8 here,
Yep,
10 here, I believe it's 6 and 4, and
Yep.
6 and 5, just because of the way it tapers, it's shown that way. They have additional planting there.
and the stockade fence is visible from the south, or is it screened? Where's the stockade fence?
So the stockade fence will be screened from both sides here
Okay.
and here. It may be visible from this point to this point from the county road side, from the commercial side.
Understood. Yeah, I think the board's concern is primarily how the residents to the south, view this.
Understandably,
'Cause that's something that we hear a lot of. Any other questions, comments, board members? No.
Solve the neighbors, that's the issue.
Alex, anything you want to add?
Oh, no, just at this point, it's up to the board to either continue this work session or decide that this is ready for a public hearing.
Yeah.
And we could work on scheduling that for there.
Okay, Lisa, anything from you?
No, I have not been asked to review this one, so
Okay.
I'm following along, but I have no further comments at this point. There's been no new site plan submissions made on it, so whatever was the latest memo from MPV back in, I think, January of last year would have been the most recent review of, yeah.
We're going to get her to review it, though, if we move this forward, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Janine, anything?
No?
No? Okay.
good.
So if everybody's okay, why don't we move this, schedule a hearing on this one? July 7th, does that work for you, or do you want to go
Yeah, that doesn't
later?
also press you for time. I know that earlier there was some concern about the calendar. We're okay for July 7th.
Okay.
As long as the mailer works and everything.
Yeah, the mailing will have to go out a week from today, so we have a little bit of a short timeline, but I think that we don't anticipate the site plan is going to change.
Do we require, and are we hinging this on the final approval and written resolution from the zoning board of appeals, and is that something that's fair to assume?
Yeah, I think we're hoping either by the time the hearing opens, or certainly by the time the board closes the hearing, they'll have that decision in hand.
Okay,
Excellent.
so motion to schedule a public hearing for 20 to 30 County Road 39A for July 7th. All in favor? Aye.
Favor of that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seriously. 74 White Street.
This, we've received no new submissions on. I don't think anybody is here. I know they've had challenges getting health department approval here for the change of use. So I think we may want to adjourn that one.
All right, let's adjourn this to the 7th. Okay, motion to adjourn 74 White Street to the 7th. Second, all in favor? Aye, okay. 74 Hill Street.
71.
71, sorry.
John Bennett, the applicant, and Scott and John David Davies are with me as well. And the clients, Dean Gunville, Terry, and Eddie Moner in the back. This is, there's been quite a bit of public discussion about this. and 4 separate hearings before the trustees for this iteration of the plan. The planning board did approve a site plan on this some years ago, and that approval was for 48 resort hotel units, 4 workforce housing units. What you see before you, and which was what was approved by the trustees, is a site plan contemplating 40 units, 40 units of resort hotel units, so 8 less, and 4 additional workforce housing units. There's also some staff housing in there. But again, this project has been approved by, what you're looking at has been approved by the trustees. The trustees, at my request, did, as noted in your staff memo, did conduct a coordinated review and issued a negative declaration regarding SECRA. There are, so what are we doing here in terms of, I'm just going to state out front that I'd like the village, this has been discussions with Alex, with the mayor's office, and the town village attorney about trying to keep these hearings going at the same time, because there's the idea is to have some cross-fertilization, as it were, of ideas amongst the boards. So we have a Thursday, June 26th hearing date for the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have a Monday, June 23rd hearing date for the ARB, and I'm going to talk a bit more about things, but I am going to request a July 7th hearing for this matter. The whole idea being that what happened the last go around, there was a lot of input from different boards coming at different areas. A site plan had been approved by the planning board, and then the Zoning Board of Appeals had some different ideas, as did the ARB. So we're trying to keep not only keep this entire application process fluid, but have all boards being able to consider public hearing as well as their own comments. So that's a sort of an important thing. We're before the ARB, of course, for the elevations for the house, which we can, for the units, which we can show you. Do we have that? Do we have the elevations? Yeah. But you will bring them up, but it's just because you always like to see what you're approving. But why are we before the Zoning Board of Appeals? We're before the Zoning Board of Appeals because for 3 reasons. The Village Code of the Village of Southampton has a very strange provision regarding the width of buildings in relation to the street in the village business zone. And I think it's quite clear that that was meant primarily to, almost uniquely, not just primarily to deal with buildings along Job's Lane and Hill Street, and says the building has to take up 90 feet of the lot, 90%, excuse me, I'm sorry, thank you, 90% of the lot. The current buildings take up 90% of the street frontage. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I apologize. The current buildings at the site, they're 257 feet long. They take up 44.6% of the width of the lot. We're proposing 56%. So we're actually going to, with this approval, albeit not make the 90%, will be decreasing the degree of nonconformity of the existing buildings. We've pushed them up to 3 feet from the setback. There's a 3-foot setback because that's what the village code requires in the village business district. So we're there for the Zoning Board of Appeals for the relief from this requirement that the building take up 90% of the street frontage, which we think just doesn't make any sense on an application like this, and a lot like this makes a lot of sense for Main Street and Job's Lane. That's why you see those buildings. They're all, they have, what do you call them, party walls. Not really applicable here. And again, the width of the building is going to be wider than what's there. We're also before the Zoning Board of Appeals because the Zoning Board of Appeals, for some strange reason in the village of Southampton, the Zoning Board of Appeals has special exception approval for pools. I don't know why. I would think that a pool is a pretty straightforward, typical amenity for a hotel, but that's for some reason it's in the village code. We're on our way to the village zoning board of appeals for special exception approval. I may say generally that I don't understand why the zoning board of appeals has special exception approval. More and more municipalities, they give the special exception approval where, in my opinion, it belongs, which is you folks. But nevertheless, the zoning board of appeals has special exception approval for the pool. I mean, so that's where we're going there. And then finally, we wanted to put some compact spaces in there, consistent with modern car sizes. Just 2 of them, and they'll be 7 by 17. The typical space is 9 by 20. So I just wanted to let you know why we're going to the zoning board of appeals. We have the trustee approval for this, going to the ZBA for some rather straightforward stuff of the pool, and to actually decrease the degree of nonconformity of the width of these buildings and those 2 little compact spaces. And then, of course, the ARB for the building. Let's just show everybody what the building looks like. So, is everybody, even though you don't have architectural review, people want to see what the building looks like.
This is along the east side.
Now, I think, is it fair to say, John, and you can tell me to keep my day job at any point, the inspiration, the antecedents for this are some pretty classic shingle-style houses. You might find this in
The Kimmead and White. This is the common gambrel style shingles. There are many buildings just like this, of similar style here in the village. I've done several of them myself. And adjacent properties have, across the street, there's a building with a very large gambrel on the corner lot there. So this is typical historic shingle style vernacular.
What's that Bible, that shingle style? What's the I forget the name of the author is escaping me. He wrote a book that's on the shingle style. Anyway, this sort of style is one of the illustrations.
John Russell Pope did some work here in the village.
Russell Pope did
His
one
work
on,
which I worked on.
Yeah. And then you did a wonderful homage to that off of Meadowmere Lane.
We did do a rather large one there.
Yeah.
While we're on this, on that east elevation view, between the left hand and the center gambrel, what is going on there on the 3rd story? What is that?
That's a dormer, a continuous dormer.
Half-story, I believe.
There are 4 units up there.
There are,
Yes.
which are hotel units.
The
Got it.
resort units.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
So I don't know if anyone's taken a look at the prior architecture. This is Atlas.
You mean Hampton's Tudor? Is that what you're referring to?
Earlier plans?
The earlier plans.
Yeah, earlier plans.
I would say this is far superior,
Lot of
not only
different
the existing
plans.
architecture, but the proposed architecture.
Hey, different strategy.
Yeah. I think it looks
Different
nice.
And not really our purview.
No, but you want to see what it looks like. Yeah, that's all. I know the staff has some comments, but these again are all things that can be taken care of. There's a site plan signed and sealed with New York State license. You just may have missed it. I have a plan that shows.
I can see it on the surveys.
It's on the survey.
Yes.
Was it-
Yeah.
It may have not been put in the Dropbox,
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't get a paper copy of anything.
Yeah, John, really, because.
So he Smith thinks-
Bobby Smith would not let this out of his office without
Okay.
signing it. And the other additional information that is sitting in the Squires and Holden's computer, and we can drop it in very quickly. So I would, given the negative declaration, given the fact that there have been numerous public hearings on this, given the fact that we're trying to track all these hearings together, Again, the ZBA is on for the 26th, the ARB is on for the 23rd. We respectfully request that you put this on for July 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
He can't hear you.
Oh. I'm sorry. I thought I think I could speak.
I think that
Yeah, it's the background noise that they're picking up.
too much
It's turning
background
me in
noise.
and out. Lisa, did you want to?
Yeah, so let me
comment?
talk a little bit about some of the points I was highlighting about this. I know this has this is an idea that's been here before, and it is a reduction in units, but the plan itself is new and different. The Board of Trustees did approve the use, but they had placed some conditions on it and very clearly outlined in their resolution some things that the planning board had to consider. In particular, the one that is, to me, like it's an organizational feature that is going to affect the site plan significantly is where the easement access, vehicular easement access to the adjacent property is, which was a requirement of the Board of Trustees decision. So where it's shown currently, I believe it goes into the buildings next door, or it goes into right next to their trash area where there's parking. It's not clear that it can be functional. Also in the landscaping plan, it's showing that that's landscaped and curbed. So I'm not sure we can have functional access there. But regardless, determining where that access is and figuring that out is in the plan, is part of the planning board's considerations. And I think that's a really important point of discussion that I'd like to hear that you should definitely have input on. From another thing they highlighted, and I actually think I talked to Alex about this, we actually think this is better resolved in this with the special permit for the pool at the zoning board, but they had raised the issue of reasonable considerations regarding noise. I personally, related to the pool use, I don't think in the location, having looked at the aerials and where this is located, and across the street from another hotel use, I don't see that as being a major concern, and to the degree that it would be, I would think it's probably properly restricted by things like use hours, and I think that really better falls under the special exception in the site plan. Though, understanding that area might, and the fencing or screening of that area might be something that the planning board wants to take into consideration. The Board of Trustees decision requires 57 parking spaces and 2 truck loading spaces. So that's another reason why, like the figure, that they've done that intentionally, because having this joint access is going to reduce the number of potential spaces. So also figuring out what the real number of spaces is, where they are, once that cross access is determined. But just so you're aware that the 57 has been set as the number that's required for their permit. From these are more detailed considerations of the site plan from an engineering perspective. Some of this, because of how we might change the curbs and the grading to affect the drive aisle. I have not had one of the civil engineers review the drainage plan, but in addition, there was not really any information provided on the sewage treatment plant that's going to be necessary on site. That sewage treatment plant is going to need a lot of leaching galleys. It's not clear how that interacts with the drainage system, I think. But I don't.
You have the appropriate setbacks, and that's not your purview. That's the Board of Health.
But
I'm not going to get. I am not. I've seen this happen before, recently, and I am not about to have a consistent and ongoing liaison between your staff and the health department, because the health department will do its job and your staff will do their job. As long as I meet the setbacks for the sewage treatment plant, the construction of it and its impact, and whether or not it conforms with the Suffolk County Health Department requirements, which, by the way, have their own setback requirements for drainage and leaching for wastewater, is something that's subject to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services.
So that's fine, you can submit their approved plan, and then we can see that it's not, that it doesn't require any changes to the
I
site
have no
plan.
intention of submitting this approved plan to you, because it's not within your purview, and I would object to H2M or Alex reviewing the septic, the sewage treatment plant. I am not going to do a Shippey's Redux where I sat here without any dog in the fight, but was concerned at a minimum to see that you had your staff liaising with the health department. That's not their job.
The site plan will be impacted, the considerations of the zoning, of the planning board will be affected by the details of that design.
No, it will not. All
It
you
will.
need to know is that the setback
Time
for
out.
complies with the setback requirements for a
That is
sewage treatment plant.
board decision, whether that's on or not. If you want to move this forward, I suggest that we reach some compromise on at least giving us an outline of, at a high level.
Oh,
where
no.
the
I'm
septic
gonna
is.
tell you where it is. I'm gonna tell you where it's set back. We proposed an area for it, and that area is conforming with setback
Okay,
requirements.
well, you show us that and we'll see if we need more information. And
Yeah,
until
no, I
then,
don't have
we're
a
not going
problem
to
with
move
that.
this forward.
I don't have any problem with
Okay.
that. But the health department is going to approve the sewage waste plant plan.
That's who's supposed to do it.
That's all I'm saying.
But
That's all I'm saying.
no one's arguing with that.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay, but we're gonna need to see that. Look, did you have anything else? Because the engine, look, in my mind, there are three things that we need on this one. This cut through, the cross access,
Well, we've shown
which
it in one
we've,
location. It's up
yeah,
to you.
we've talked about this
Mhm.
from the very beginning
That's
on this
correct.
one as a big issue,
That's
right? We're gonna want to know that your next door neighbors are okay with that as well,
The next
because
door neighbor doesn't want it.
they don't, that's not part of their options. Their option is they're gonna get it, and
Yeah.
you guys need to work
Okay,
out with them
I
where it's
understand.
gonna be.
I see.
And then come back to us, and then we'll say, yeah, that's good, or nope, come, reconvene and
But this is all stuff
come
that,
back with a better
this
answer. So
stuff
that's
is-
number one.
okay.
Number two,
Right.
the whole engineering side of it, that's always part of our consideration, so
Mhm.
we're gonna need information on that. We can decide how much detail, but, we're gonna need that
everything in the
boxed.
report is sitting in Squires and Holder's computer. We
Understood.
gave that.
And then the third is the whole Viridian, in my mind, the whole Viridian Way and whether that's gonna get opened at the north end and the whole traffic business. I don't believe that the trustees really,
No, the Southampton Association, Jay Deasing made the request. And the trustees were not biting off on it. You can watch the tapes yourself. And I suggested that if anyone wants to open up Viridian Way to Cooper's Farm Road, the last time someone tried to do
Yeah.
that, there were people out there with pitchforks. And I don't think the trustees was at all interested in that. But as I said,
yep,
in that trustee meeting, that's up to the trustees. I mean, they can open it up at their whim. I don't have, you can't tell them to open it up, I can't tell them to open it up. There's a dedicated area for it that runs through the Cooper's Farm subdivision. So if the trustees decide that they want to open that up so that there's a connection between Viridian Way and Cooper's Farm Road, that's purely within their discretion.
Janine, correct me if I'm wrong, but the traffic impact is part of the scope of a planning board review.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's all I'm
There
gonna
was
say.
there was a
I-
village commission report.
Yep.
Which specifically talked about traffic that was rolled into the approval from the trustees. And one of the things that it noted was the trip generation from this use is significantly less
Yeah.
than even the existing village business uses. These are not big trip generators where village business uses, as you know. I mean, think about how many trips are generated on an August night at Budaberry, for example. It's nothing. This is nothing compared to that. And the village, and the traffic report that was prepared by the village specifically It was prepared at the request of the village, paid for by the village. We had nothing to do with selecting the,
John, I'm not here to debate it, I'm just saying, these are the 3 big points that we're
Yeah,
gonna have to
no.
get our arms around,
No, I
okay?
know,
And
but
just so
the
that all that-
trustees did look at it.
I understand, I know that. So, assuming that all that information is there
Mhm.
for review,
Mhm.
then I think those are the major hurdles
Right.
that we're gonna deal with on this, unless anyone out has anything to add to those 3 items. Do you?
No, I don't.
You good?
I don't want to add it. I think one of them is absurd, but you
Yeah.
know my view, I'll probably abstain on that issue.
Cross-access, that ship has sailed, I know.
The trustees want it, and I don't think the trustees have reflected maximum wisdom.
For the record, Alan's not a cross-access guy.
Well, I will tell you, I have a serious concern. You know, if there are fatalities and there's a village or state or town road design that is responsible for that in the eyes of a personal injury lawyer, the municipalities get added to the list of defendants.
Yep.
I mean, you've got somebody barreling through there, somebody's walking out of the movie theater with their kids in tow. But in any event.
Yeah, we can talk about it forever, but
Talk about
that
forever.
one's
But I
already
would
been
like,
decided.
all of that stuff, you should want to see what the public says about this. I respectfully request that you put it on for the 7th, so that because all these other boards have scheduled hearings. I will tell you that with the exception of Jay Deasing, no one appeared at any of the meetings, and his concerns were primarily opening up for 80 Way, which the trustees listened to.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I'm aware. Any question from this side? This side?
No.
All good? Look, in my mind, the cross-access is the big one, right? And it's just where it's located, right?
Okay.
Is it towards the east or south or north, right? And I think when we first, when you were first here, way back when I first joined
That's right.
the board, and this is one of the first things I remember listening to.
That's right. I remember.
I think the applicant wanted it closer to the south end, right? You know, where it is now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I recall the movie theater and, you know, whoever's operating that cafe back there was not excited.
It was moved north
Yeah.
to accommodate that. One of the several things is the topography along this border
Yeah,
is different. And in
understood.
some places more extreme than others.
Yeah,
And there's those that would say, if you made this cross-access right in line with the road that's coming through, there's nothing discouraging someone from coming barreling through to cut
Yep.
and avoid the light.
other than village code.
And when the chief of police was here, when we brought this up,
Other than the
she
law,
said-
but that's, you know,
the
that's
chief
a
of
minor
police said
issue.
that it's very hard to enforce that, like it
Yeah.
is anyone turning right onto Hill Street.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't do a rolling stop or obeys the speed
I'm going to
limit
jail.
in full,
So,
raise their.
look, the quick way to solve this one is when you're here on the 7th, just bring something from the next door neighbor saying,
Absolutely.
here's
Absolutely.
where we both want it, and we're good with that.
Okay.
And that's the fastest way.
We've
to
had
do
great
it.
conversations with
Okay.
them, as a matter of fact. Really great conversations with them.
Anyone object to scheduling this for July 7th?
No.
All good? Here?
Plan to be
Okay,
here.
let's do that. We'll schedule this for the 7th.
Thanks
You're talking about a public hearing on
Correct.
July 7th?
That's what he said.
Thank you for your time.
Alex, did you have anything to add? I'm sorry.
No, I think that addressed it.
Yeah, Janine,
All set?
you're good, all set? Okay, so
Thanks, Elliot.
July 7th.
Thanks, appreciate it. Thank you.
We have the 57. That's
It's nice.
not much you want
So I know the board made a motion to cancel the June 16th meeting. So I would just ask the board if we could schedule, set the calendar for the rest of the summer. We've got some suggested dates on the last page of the agenda, following the board's typical practice of meeting the first and third Monday. I know we've got July 7th, and then after that, the dates would be July 21st, August 4th, and August 18th.
Any conflicts with any of those dates that take us through the end of August?
I'm good.
Galen, you good? All good? Do you want a motion for that one, Alex, or we just all
Sure.
nod? Yeah, motion to set the calendar as proposed here on the agenda.
I second.
With the exception of the June 16th meeting.
Correct.
Yes.
Exception.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Great, and then I think the only other item I had on the work session agenda was if you wanted to approve the May 5th minutes.
Yeah.
I'll approve. Second.
Yeah, second,
Second.
motion to approve the May 5th minutes. Yep. Second, all in favor?
I will say they were very well done.
Great, so we'll get those, the approved version posted online.
No, cancel. Oh, yeah, cancel, 'cause you were not. Yeah, sorry. You were- yeah, you were- Motion to close our meeting.
So moved.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.